Mr. Speaker, our Global News published a report just last week that over 7 million Canadians are struggling to put food on their tables. So let's talk turkey. Under the last Conservative government, turkey cost only $2.49 a pound, but under these Liberals, it's $1.49 that Canadians have to pay. That's a 67% increase. The Liberal-NDP carbon tax is hurting everyday Canadians who are just trying to have a nice Thanksgiving dinner with their families. After 8 long years of these Liberals, Canadians have had enough. So why aren't these Liberals axing the carbon tax so Canadians can bring home affordable dinners this Thanksgiving weekend?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, for days and days I listened to Conservatives across the way filibuster a bill that will really make a difference. When you talk about competition, as a government, we want to see competition. That's one of the reasons why we called to Ottawa the 5 major grocery chains. What do the Conservatives say? It's an op. When it comes to legislation, what do? Talk, 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 Mr. Speaker. They're not prepared to get behind Canadians when they need to be there in a very real and tangible way. Stand up and vote for the legislation.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
That sounded like a bunch of gobbledygook. In my riding, some of the best turkey producers are in all of Canada. But the Liberal-NDP carbon tax is increasing the cost to feed their turkeys and heat their barns. When the Liberals tax the farmers who grow the food and tax the trucker who ships the food, Canadians have to pay more to buy the food. Canadians know that this Liberal-NDP coalition is just not worth the cost. So will the Prime Minister stop his photo ops, get back to work, and axe the carbon tax, or is he just going to wreck Thanksgiving for everyone?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to remind my colleague that the dairy farmers of Canada have committed that to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The Egg Farmers Association of Canada have also announced that they want to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. The Grain Growers Association of Canada, Mr. Speaker, have also committed to reach net zero by 2050. Farmers understand how climate change is impacting their sector and how we need to put measures in place to fight it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
3 weeks ago, the Prime Minister made a promise that grocery prices would come down in time for Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, an article just out on the Canadian press today, prices haven't gone down, and you're going to continue to see fairly large sticker shock on items. This is Canada after 8 years of this Liberal-NDP government, Mr. Speaker, but it gets worse. The article goes on to say some people will be looking at alternatives, so they might not have a big family gathering. Happy Thanksgiving, Canada, brought to you by this Liberal-NDP government. Will the Prime Minister keep his promise and get grocery prices down?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. Mr. Speaker, we've heard loud and clear from Canadians across this country that grocery prices need to come down. Our government gets up every morning, is working hard every day to lower those prices or stabilize those prices. Not only did we call the top largest 5 grocery CEOs to Ottawa, we got them on board to work on action plans that would help stabilize food prices for Canadians. That's just what they've done. We're seeing those actions roll out with price reductions and discounts on a basket of basic goods, and we look forward to future developments.
Well, Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, that's just entirely not accurate. None of the prices are going down. I just read an article in the Canadian press. Canadians know that all the prices are going up. In fact, the Ottawa Mission is now asking for turkeys. Why? Because the price of a turkey has gone up 67% as a result of 8 years of this NDP Liberal government. The Prime Minister made a promise 3 weeks ago, so I'm going to ask again, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister keep his promise to get grocery prices down so Canadians can have an affordable Thanksgiving, or is he just going to go back and hide in Rideau Cottage like he recently did?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is taking action with grocery CEOs. They've gotten on board. They've produced plans. They're rolling out measures. Though they don't know what each other are going to do, they're going to be competing to bring down and stabilize those prices. There's many measures that will move forward in weeks and days to come. And this is good news for Canadians, Mr. Speaker, because grocery CEOs and those chains are now competing to stabilize food prices for Canadians.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, that reminds me of when you would say things like the wheels are in motion, the check's in the mail, all those kinds of things. You know, Canadians can't eat a plan. Canadians can't eat the photo op that the Prime Minister took with grocery CEOs because the facts are the facts. Grocery prices are way up and they continue to go up despite these alleged plans and photo ops. Onions up 69%, potatoes up 76%, oranges up 77%, and turkeys up 67%. Will the Prime Minister keep his promise? It's not hard. He made that promise. Or will he just go off at another $200,000 vacation at taxpayer expenses in Montana?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
I know it must be hard for the leader of the Conservative Party to really empathize with Canadians when surely he doesn't pay for turkeys at Stornoway. We know they're free. On federal leadership, we've demonstrated leadership and brought this 5 largest grocery chains to Ottawa, and we are moving forward with them to lower and stabilize food prices for Canadians. Those grocery chains are demonstrating Canadians will really be the judge of how satisfied they are with those decreases.
The
honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal government, everything is more expensive in Canada. But Thanksgiving is only 2 days away, and few people are in the mood to celebrate. The Prime Minister made some promises. 3 weeks ago, he said food prices would come down for Thanksgiving. Another broken promise. But what will happen is that there will be a second carbon tax, and this will be enthusiastically supported by the Bloc Québécois. If people vote Bloc, they'll pay for it. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are, as my colleague already said, we've already begun the work with the major grocery chains. They will work with us. Prices will come down for Canadians. And what's more, we know that investments in climate change will produce results for Canadians. So we're going to work together to improve Canadians' quality of life. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. I'd like to congratulate the member opposite, the parliamentary secretary, on the quality of his French. Congratulations and thank you for making that effort. But that's not all, Mr. Speaker, because what he said was not quite consistent with reality. Prices are going up. The Prime Minister said they would go down. It's not true. There are always sales at this time of year, but the Liberals are too greedy. They want to raise taxes. That's the worst thing to do when people are struggling. When are they going to do the right thing? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are working with grocery stores, with the industry, but when directions are given, when the instructions are given to lower prices, that's what they're going to do. They've started doing so already. Canadians will see this in the days to come. That's the fact. The Conservatives can say whatever they want. They can shout for all they're worth, but they're not really doing anything for Canadians. Our plan will improve things for Canadians.
Canadians are hurting, and as we head into Thanksgiving, food banks are on the front line of the cost of living and food insecurity crisis created by 8 years of this NDP Liberal government. In Barrie, food bank usage is up 94% in 1 year. Executive Director Sharon Palmer told Simco.com this week, with rents where they are, the price of gas and food where they are, we're seeing more families who are struggling. There's no evidence anywhere that the Prime Minister's promise that he made 3 weeks ago has lowered grocery prices. So where are the grocery prices and why haven't they been lowered?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honourable Member, for his question. You know, our government is the only group in this only party in this House that is prepared to take action. We have called in the CEOs of the largest grocery chains. They have come back with a response. We have worked with the manufacturers. They are coming back with a response. These responses are going to result in a direct benefit to Canadians in lower prices, and that work is going to continue. We're going to hold them to account. We're going to keep holding them to account so that the affordability that Canadians deserve is delivered to them.
The honourable member for Barrie Innisfil.
Promise hasn't been kept. The cost of living and food insecurity crisis created after 8 years of this NDP Liberal government has also hit families hard as they go to buy turkey this weekend. Prices for turkeys have shot up 67% since 2015. On top of that, potatoes are up 77%, while carrots are up 74% in the same time. The legend of the bird's power to induce sleepiness, a sort of turkey coma, is proving to be a myth as Canadians have now awakened to the fact that the Prime Minister is not worth the cost. So where are the lower grocery prices that he promised 3 weeks ago?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, our government is fighting for Canadians on affordability every step of the way. We're fully seized with addressing the affordability challenges that Canadians are facing. We've called in the top 5 grocery chain CEOs to help stabilize food prices. They've come up with plans that they're now implementing. The fact that Conservatives call that a photo op, I think decisive action for Canadians. A photo op says more about them, Mr. Speaker, than it does about us. Regardless of Conservative attacks, we will keep pressing on and fighting for affordability for Canadians.